The origins of the Lambeg drum are shrouded in mystery. There's a lot of folklore surrounding the drum, but not a lot of actual historical evidence and documentation through the years. We're pretty sure that large wooden stave drums arrived with King William III of Orange's Continental Army at Carrickfergus in June 1690, when he and his soldiers went en route to the famous Battle of the Boyne. Fife and drum was used as a form of battlefield communication. They had these large stave drums to send messages on the battlefield. The drums grew and grew and grew and reached their sort of pinnacle in size in the late 1800s. One of the great mysteries about the modern Lambeg drum and how it's played is the point where it gets turned onto its side and both heads are played, and at what stage did they stop using ball-headed sticks or mallets to play the drum and start using the curved Malacca canes. There's all sorts of theories as to how canes got used instead of sticks, but what we can see from eyewitness accounts in about the 1880s, that this was something quite new and quite revolutionary, and certainly in the press you find that it gets tongues wagging.
There was an early tradition of lambegging, if you like, that I suppose would be more akin to early bass drums that you would have found in marching bands. And very early lambegs were built like old stave drums, like barrels essentially. And then they started to evolve. One of the Lambeg drums behind me was made in the 1840s in Dromore in Walsh's in County Down, and it's a rather smaller stunted version of the larger Lambeg drum that we'll see in modern usage today. So there was an evolution of the instrument down through time, easier to make, easier to carry, and different playing styles that were adopted down through the years.
After the Battle of the Boyne, the drum was adopted here as a form of remembrance in celebration of the victory of William III of Orange. And whenever processions came into play to commemorate that victory, largely after the formation of the Orange Order in 1795, fife and drum became widespread throughout the province of Ulster.
Then, as far back as 1796 and the account of the first official Orange Parade, eyewitnesses record that the parties of Orange men parading in lodges had fifes and drums at the head of each party, and as the 19th century wears on, it explodes within the Loyal Order tradition, and you see drums appearing at parades and processions.
It's around this time that the Belfast and South Antrim 12th demonstration goes to a large field just outside the County Antrim village of Lambeg at a place called Crome Hill, where William and his soldiers allegedly encamped en route to the Boyne in 1690. And it's at this large field, this demonstration, that the drums become synonymous with that geographical place. And it became the day out that it sort of is now. People from Belfast got the trains from Lisburn, got the trains out to Lambeg, out to the field to watch the procession arriving. And it's at this time that this sort of phenomenon of these big drums really takes off. So people would be going back and saying, "Did you see the drums at Lambeg?" Or people back in Belfast that maybe didn't go to the field, they'd be saying, "Have the drums come back from Lambeg yet?" And you find this creeping in, that Lambeg and drums happens in the same breath, in the same sentence, and all of a sudden, round about 1908, 1909, there's a switch goes, and it's now the Lambeg drum.
The symbols that you'll see on Lambeg drums would be associated with loyalty, with especially Britishness, those within the British Isles. Interestingly, you can be alive and be painted on a Lambeg drum, whereas you have to have passed away to appear on an orange banner, the exception, of course, being the head of state.
There's a lovely phrase that I found in the Northern Whig, 14th of July 1924, where it described the scene of the Orange Parade as an al fresco art gallery. And I suppose if we think by this stage the Lambeg drum itself had sort of stagnated around that 3 foot in diameter size, it's a huge physical thing, and it's the perfect canvas for putting appropriate images on. Any sort of topic that piqued the Ulsterman's interest appeared on a banner and then appeared on the Lambeg drum. And the painters out there do a fantastic job keeping the tradition alive.
There is a school of thought, which I subscribe to, that in many country areas of particularly what is now Northern Ireland, big drumming lodges would have had a plain shell drum. And the reason for this was that, given that the Lambeg drums were so expensive, the plain shell would have been lent back and forward between the Orange Lodge and the local AOH division, so they had no symbolism from either side on them and could be played. So given that they were so expensive, that idea of having a plain shell that could parade on the 12th of July for the Orange Men and on Our Lady's Day for the Ancient Order of Hibernians, I think is quite a romantic one. Lambeg drumming is hugely important to the Orange tradition today. There are, of course, independent drumming clubs. Many of them grew up, particularly after the 1950s when there was more disposable income in Northern Ireland after the Second World War. Drumming clubs developed on both sides of the community, and the rivalry wasn't really religious between Protestants and Roman Catholics. In many cases, the rivalry was born out of which particular drum maker had made your drum and who could play it the best. So you had drumming clubs in both the Shankill and the Falls Road.
Drumming matches are a huge part of the Lambeg drumming culture, and there's evidence that they have been going since the very late 1800s, early 1900s. I found around Ballymena, where I'm from, I found lots of instances in the local papers where guys have ended up in court over falling out over the result of a drumming match, or a challenge being issued for somebody to have a drumming match or a stick-in to have a competition with another drummer. The other drummer reneged, and then it fell to fisticuffs, to violence. It goes up in front of the magistrate. The magistrate obviously thinks this is hilarious, and sort of, you can read between the lines, he's laughing through his hands at the Lambeg drummers, but to this is something more serious than life and death, that their sort of skills as a drummer have been brought into question, and they're ready to take the stand to say, I'm a better drummer than that man. The violence was secondary, their reputation as a drummer was more important. You
saw these drumming competitions develop very quickly, and they mushroom and continue to be an important part of culture in Northern Ireland today, during those summer months, and they can run anywhere between March and October. And the competition is very fierce, not only between the drum makers but those who are playing the drums, and they take it extremely seriously, and it's a culture all unto itself, even divorced from the, if you like, the Orange tradition.
To me, the Lambeg drum is evocative of changing seasons. It's that time when spring becomes summer, that time whenever you start to smell cut grass. On a nice evening, you will hear the rattle of a distant drum over the horizon, sort of heralding in it's now summertime and that the 12th is coming.
It's important that this aspect of the tradition in Northern Ireland, and indeed the wider world, is maintained, and the Orange family is keen that a younger generation are encouraged to take up Lambeg drumming, fifing and drumming associated with the Lambeg drumming clubs and with Orange lodges, and it has an appeal well beyond just that of a male-dominated organisation, and young people, both girls and boys, are taking up their malacca canes and getting involved in the Lambeg tradition today.
I think it's a really, really nice connection to our sort of ancestors, that although we're living in a modern day era now with the internet and worldwide connectivity, at the same time, there's guys still worrying about pulling lambegs, getting the drums sounding right for the big day coming up or for the drumming match at the weekend. And it's that sort of continuity with the past. I find it sort of comforting, I find it nostalgic and reassuring, and it really makes me very happy knowing that there's still young men out there and young women doing this and taking the tradition forward for years to come.